much for being here today. There's so much energy in the room. I'm really inspired by everyone, inspired by the students who have put this together. I think, I don't even have to speak to the fact that students have come, they're excited, they're enthusiastic. Everything that you see here today was put together by them. The program, the decorations, the food, the silent auction, everything you see here. So I'm so grateful to them, first and foremost. I also want to, I'd be remiss not to mention, or not to praise God. It's what, helps me maintain my integrity and reminds me of the sincerity that I want to have in this work. And I want to thank our hosts, the El Haj family, Laura Lane, who put this place, who helped, support the students and put this place together. Thank you. I also want to thank our in-kind donors. We have a long list of local businesses and supporters who've been excited about this campaign. It's listed in the front, and you'll see their beautiful items and services on the silent auction table, so I encourage you guys to look at that. And of course, I want to recognize all our special guests. Chairman Bolova, I'm so grateful to have you. You've been an inspiration to me, as the students mentioned, so thank you. Secretary Atif, it's been such a pleasure working with you, and I'm really inspired truly by your sincerity and service. And he updates us on Facebook on what he's up to, and it's always motivating to me to see how he listens to people in response to the needs in our community. I want to recognize others in the room. Supervisor Gross, who's seen me growing up, and who's given me her time and advice and passion, so thank you. And many others. I know Senator Dick Saslaw was here. Several people, Chap Peterson, came from Richmond. The session has not ended, but they did decide to come just to support. Delegate Samira is here. I want to make sure anyone else, the state senators or delegates, if you raise your hand. Right. Supervisor McKay, who's here as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have school board members. Karen Corbett Sanders, chair of the school board, is here. School board member Dalia Palchik, who has been a mentor to me and who has helped me and referred me to incredible programs that have helped me become the person I am today. We also have Ryan McElveen here, school board member at large, who will be, hopefully filling his seat. We also have some candidates. There are many candidates, so raise your hand if you're a candidate. Folks, feel free to talk to them. We have, members of the school running for school board, chairman of the board, plenty of folks that are in the audience, so, do take a moment to talk to them. And we have, some of the chairs of the various districts in the Democratic Committee here, Jennifer Adeli, Maggie Godbold, who's unable to make it, but Christopher Schaefer, who are co-hosts of today, and I'm sure there are several others. So thank you all. Thank you everyone, education, advocates, students. I'm very grateful to have all of you in the room. Yeah, it's very, it really is an honor when I look ahead and I see, a couple people who've been at these school board meetings talking about special education or talking about racial justice or equity, and I see your faces in that audience. So thank you. A few things to point out. I think you get this by now, but if you look around you, you'll see, the energy that's been fueling this campaign. The bright, promising young people. The spirit of what this campaign is all about. When I reflect on the mentors that have been there for me and hoping that would be the role I have for these students. I mentioned how everything was set up by these students. We also have this idea that came from a student, the hashtag yellow caps. It's kind of the team. We have these caps that everyone can decorate and prepare, and we'll have those for you guys on election day to wear and be a visible team. So anyway, this whole campaign really represents an opportunity to mentor and to empower the community. So you guys have heard a lot about my experiences, what I've done in this community, and I'm, again, humbled and inspired by everyone in this room. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about maybe a side of me that you haven't seen, and go a little bit in depth as, how I grew up and what has inspired me to even be here before you. I wanted to take a little bit of time to situate you into my family growing up. I'm the oldest of 4. I grew up with 2 parents who dedicated their time in the service of the community. I remember waking up at 3 a.m. to pager calls that my father would receive when he would have to leave the comfort of his sheets to go attend to a patient that needed him. I remember days when I would be waking up for school before the sleep activists in the room made school start times later, So that's an accomplishment. That's an incredible accomplishment we want to continue supporting. And that would be when my dad would actually come home from work for that night, the night before. I would encounter people in the community who would tell me things about what my father has done that I didn't even know about. And that's been an inspiration to me. Seeing, the puffiness under his eyes, his knees getting tired, just because he's standing in surgery all day serving the community. I was inspired by my mom who gave up everything. She was a PhD in molecular genetics on the track to get a Nobel Prize in science, who gave that up to nurture what she saw to be the future in me and my siblings. I'm inspired by their service, and some of the very elected officials in this room can speak to the impacts my family have had in this community. And of course, my siblings, each of whom are active, many of you know them and came and told me stories about that, who I've been an older sister to, but who inspire me. And so I grew up in a home where, the news was on a regular basis. It was a point that my parents made to keep us connected to what's going on globally. Seeing children, and I remember keenly when I was in Mrs. Borelli's 6th grade class, thinking back to those kids who I would see on the screen who were deprived of opportunity, who may be starving around the world, whatever it may have been, and sitting and just trying to brainstorm as to what I was going to do something about this. I was a naive 6th grader. I had this vision of starting this thing. It was called Patch, and perfecting America through cultural harmony. I thought that if we just understood each other better, maybe we could solve some of these global problems. And that's the kind of mentality that I had. My family raised me in a way that I had no choice, given the privileges that I grew up with, the blessings that I had to live in an incredible county like Fairfax, with all the opportunities I could ask for, that I had no choice but to dedicate my time, my service, my energy, my passion to others and to bettering the community that I'm living in. Coming from a situation where I was bullied myself growing up. One being obviously a woman, a Muslim in the U.S. post 9/11. That's a whole load of challenges itself. But to the extent of kids in school throwing M&Ms on the ground and asking me to eat it off the ground, or a girl literally putting a trash bin over my head. Situations like that made me intolerant to injustice in this community. That made me think that confidence in a child, their belief in themselves, can have such an impact on how far they can go. And that's something I want to fight for and preserve in every kid. I think about that child, like the many children that you guys know in your lives, like the young people we have in this room, like those kids who I would watch on TV and grieve over the deprivation that they lived through. Imagine that starry-eyed kid, full of potential, looking to you, hopeful, just believing that there's no barrier to their success out there, that this world is fair, that they have a shot to be whatever they want. And trusting in you, trusting in us to make sure that that's the case. I want you to think about that kid. That could be from any home. That could be underprivileged. That may not have had food on the weekend. That kid whose parents might not be there for them because they have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs to put food on the table. And that's the kid I want to fight for. And the many children across the county. That kid who has the potential to be the next Nobel Peace Prize winner. The next scientist who comes up with the key to cure cancer. Or that kid that starts an NGO or tech company that addresses global poverty and comes up with innovative solutions for the future. That's what inspires me. This campaign is tough, folks. You gotta go to events, you drive miles and miles across the county, and it's not a joke. And then, on average, I come home midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. from meetings, strategy sessions. But what is it that's what we're doing this for? It's the potential in those kids. It's the opportunity we want to have them access. The fact that our values don't allow us to accept that money or access or lack of present parents in their life or whatever it is, that is not going to be a barrier to that success, because we as Fairfax County Public Schools want to mentor those children, want to provide the supports they need, want to be the advocates for them. And that's the excellent school system that we want to be proud of, because it works for everyone. I want you to join me in building that system for the leader in every child, for that potential astronaut, for that potential incredible young person. And I think to myself, what are those limits and what are the things that we can do to minimize those obstacles? We talked about equity. It's a longer policy conversation, of course. I'm very pleased to hear that today the school board will be having one of its first boundary conversations in a long time, and it's about time. And I want to continue pushing for that. It's politically prickly, it's a little bit dangerous in the election seasons, but it's the right thing to do. And that's something I commit to doing, whether I win or lose this seat because of it. I want to advocate for mental health. I've talked about this. I had the privilege and burden in many ways of being a peer mental health counselor in college. And I got the chance to see intimately what students go through and how much just a listening ear, just a caring heart can change the trajectory of the student that feels alone or isolated. And many students talked about that. Offering supports like peer mental health groups in our schools. I know from my sister's experience at Frost Middle School, she was a part of something like that, and it did wonders for her peers. And that's something we can expand and implement in all the schools. In addition to what some of the kids referred to, which of course, providing those staffs, lowering those ratios so that counselors are not just there for administrative support, but know you by name and are invested in your future and understand your dreams and passions and maybe some of the troubles you're dealing with. Of course, then we come to how do we facilitate that? We have to make sure that we treat and compensate our staff with the dignity that the profession deserves. Teaching is an incredibly difficult job. It takes heart, and that's why our teachers are committed, and I'm very proud of Leah to see her being a teacher. I have a couple other friends who I grew up with, Renee and Lizzie and others who now are teaching in Fairfax County. And I want to advocate for those teachers to be able to live in the communities that they teach in. The model of that community school, where someone is invested in the future of those kids. That's the kind of kid I was talking about earlier. That starry-eyed kid. And of course, when we talk about all these things, there are so many ideas I can share with you. And I know we've gone for a while. I'm happy to carry the conversation. And many of you have come to me with brilliant ideas about what we can do for our kids. So how are we going to fund it? Because of course, we know Fairfax County, we've had some troubles. We haven't received more funding since recession time. And we're going to continue pushing the General Assembly in Richmond to provide some more support. And I know there's a comprehensive package coming in, which we're very excited about, and we're going to do great things with. But I want to expand public and private partnerships in this community. There are incredible nonprofit organizations that are doing wonderful work. You heard about just one today that I happened to be involved with. There are many that provide meals for kids on the weekends, that work with homeless students, that offer those supports already. Mental health clinics. Having those formal relationships and liaising with them through the school system will be an incredible asset to this community. And then, of course, expanding the private partnerships that we have. The Foundation for Fairfax Schools exists. We can continue pushing in that. I saw some major corporations that are only offering about $1,000 a year. I think we can work a little bit on that. We can develop more of that. And we know Amazon's coming in, so let's make sure we get our cut of the cake from that too. And I want to remind everyone, when I think about bringing, hopefully, energy and greatness to this community, I think that somebody had to have done that 30 years ago. Somebody had to be advocating in the same way for my father to come speaking no word of English and to be handheld by the Fairfax County public school teachers to be able to be the father that he is right now and the professional that he is today. And there's many children in this room. Somebody fought 30, 50, 100 years ago to make sure that this community was inclusive, that children with special needs were included in the same building, that minorities and immigrants were welcome in the spaces that we have in our schools, that institutions like ICE would stay away from our schools. People had to fight for that. And so when I think about what is that imaginatory thinking that we can have, what is that radical thinking that we can have to push the conversation, to push the needle today, to continue pushing for inclusion on all aspects, to fight for every kid, regardless of the race they represent, the language they speak at home, their immigration or familial status structure, their income level, what gender or orientation they identify with, no matter their special need or ability, that every kid, regardless of where they live in this county, has equal access to quality schools and gets to take a piece of that Fairfax County Public Schools that is one of the top 5 in the country. We're proud of that, and we want to make sure that that's the case for everyone. And it didn't happen. We shouldn't take it for granted. So we have to think about the hard work that it's going to require today, that innovative thinking, that unwavering passion and commitment to make that happen. That's what this election is about, folks. It's about pushing the conversation. I commit to doing my best to continue being innovative in those ways and to not just sit in my seat if I win. Ultimately, education is a great equalizer. We've talked about thinking about how it's been done in the past, what it can do to change people's lives. You've heard stories from these students about how it's impacted their families and themselves and empowered them to have high aspirations and do what they're doing. It's the starting point to break out of cycles of poverty. It's the starting point to interact and learn enough to get past one's prejudices, to stretch fields of imagination beyond what is or even can be imagined, to innovate, to develop oneself, to ultimately lead to that cultural harmony that I was reading a morning about when I was a kid. It's that tool, it's that window of opportunity. And we've all had people in our lives who've shaped us in different ways, who've defined the ceiling for us, whether they've elevated it or perhaps lowered it. And I've been hearing from so many families already, many of whom are in this room, who've just sent my number around to people. Oh, talk to her if you have a problem with the schools. Just talk to Abrar, she'll help you. And I'm not there yet, but I want to be, and I want to ask you all to help me with this. Let's set the standard for public service, continuing what some have put forth and building on the good work that we have to bring accessible, proactive agendas that are fueled by individuals who will meet you where you're at. I want to be a public servant who thinks like the constituent's going to think. Those families that don't show up on back to school night, how do we reach them? Brian referred to what I've talked to the students a lot about, of being a mouthpiece. What is ultimately the role of a public servant? I want to be a public servant who doesn't just, wait for advocacy groups to bring forth ideas. But I want to go find those problems. I want to go seek those ideas from the community members and then try to push the conversation to bring us there. We don't have the money. Let's think of those innovative ways. Let's push some of our corporate partners and see what we can get from them to make this happen, to make sure that teachers are respected, to bring about the mental health support that we need in these schools. And that's what I'm asking you all to join me in doing. We live in a community that can offer so much, that offers so much. Was mentioned, we speak 182 languages. It's a majority-minority community, incredible diversity that we're very proud of. Most of our high schools are on the top 100 high schools list in this country. We have the #1 high school in the country, in Fairfax County. We're very proud of this community. One of the most highly educated, one of the wealthiest, most highly performing counties in the country. And we want to make sure that the brilliance that represents is the case for every student. Let's face our challenges optimistically. Let's work together to crowdsource the many ears that are on the ground to bring forth the best ideas. And let's carry the conversation forward. I want to hear from you guys. One of the things that I really am trying to make that's different about this campaign, a spirit of mentorship, investment in each other, growth together. I actually have a board. I would love for you guys to write your ideas. I commit to doing what I can to listen to everyone and to bring those ideas forward if I make it. And in conclusion, when you look around you and you look at these students, we're excited today. When you think of that starry-eyed child that has so much potential to grow in this community, when we reflect on the many challenges and the unique opportunities that exist to bring about equitable education, to provide the support students need, to bring forth resources and opportunities to families in this community who don't even know a school board exists, or wouldn't even know to tell you what a school board is. To make that high level of commitment and public service where we bring that to them. And we empower the community to understand their access, their sense of entitlement to authorities that serve them. Because that's how this community will become great. When we represent the families that exist here and then hold ourselves accountable in a way that serves them best. And again, when you look around you, these are the young people that worked hard to set up today, that did everything in their capacity to collect all the signatures, more than double the signatures we needed to be first on the ballot on the first day when the process opened up. These are the students that inspire me. And the challenges of the campaign, when we think about the future that we can forge together for Fairfax, the opportunities, the values we want to bring. Because none of us here would accept for their child not to have the best. And none of us here would accept to live in a community that was okay with their child not having the best, or having the support they needed, or not being heard. And so I ask you to join me in that. Let's not let these kids down. Let's not let these communities who are looking and excited about what we can bring together down. I ask for your support. Please join our team. Contribute. This is one of those things, the campaign, can't run without your support. Don't forget to decorate and sign your cap before you leave so you can be part of our team on Election Day. This is my mom, by the way. She's always reminding me of the things that I might forget. Abrar, did you do this? Did you do that? Bless her. But yeah, thank you all for coming. Let's do this together, folks. There's a lot of great things we can do, a lot of energy. I'm very honored and pleased to have all of you in this room. Let's do this together, guys. Abrar Omeish School Board at Large 2019. Thank you.